Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Every Rockie Ever, the Colorado Rockies podcast focused entirely on its history of former players in their history. I'm your host, Skyler Timmins, and joined always here, once again after a little bit of a hiatus, with my older brother, Dustin Timmins.
Hello, hello.
Ahoy, hoy. It's been a little while since we've recorded our last episode, just the busyness of life and also perhaps some laziness scattered in there from us. But how have you been since we last did our Every Rockie Ever, Dustin?
Just been busy. The summertime, it seems like once school starts, I go on vacation back to work because there's so much to do at the house at summertime with the kids in the house and coaching summer baseball and high school soccer workouts.
Mhm.
So it's hard to fit in time to get in to record some material.
Mhm. But we're always looking through and thinking about Rockies and trying to always figure out who we should talk about and cover. And this episode, since the Yankees were just recently in town to play the Rockies in a 3-game set here in 2023, that brought in one former Rocky, DJ LeMahieu, who we'll eventually get to. But it made me think of another notable Yankee and Oakland Athletic, and one of my personal favorite players for a lot of Rockies fans, the one and only, the Great Giambino, Jason Giambi, who, yes, he was a Colorado Rocky. And we'll throw it over to Dustin here. Run down what was Jason Giambi's career overall, his path to end up as a Rocky.
All right. Jason Giambi, who I always think of as an Oakland Athletic, but the first baseman, designated hitter, and left fielder. Jason Giambi, born January 8th, 1971 in California. He got drafted originally in the 89 draft by the Brewers, but he didn't sign. And so right out of high school, and then he was drafted by the Athletics in the 92 draft out of California State University, Long Beach. And he made his major league debut in 1995 with the Athletics. And he played his very last game in September 27th, 2014 as a member of the Cleveland then Indians. For us,
20
for
years
the
in the big
Rockies,
leagues.
yeah, a lot of time. He was an MVP, home run derby champ. He's a 5-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger. Wore number 23 with the Rockies, where he played from 2009 to 2012. And in his time with the Rockies, he was, that backup first baseman, pinch hitter specialist, veteran leadership. And, we got Jason Giambi at the tail end of his career, where, he had a crazy lifestyle, but when he got with the Rockies, he, put things in order and got down to that, that serious player of taking care of his body, take care of, started family, and was an awesome member, coming from the big heydays of the Oakland Athletics. They had some great teams that he was a part of. Them and the Yankees always battling it out in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes over to the evil empire of the Yankees and continued to have success, belting home runs all the time. And then it kind of, that tail end of, the steroid issues and all that, but ends up with the Rockies just at the right time in 2009 that really helped them get up into the playoffs that year and did some cool things. But he's one of those names that comes up like in the immaculate inning, that game, that his name will pop up and people won't what? He was a Rocky on Twitter. We saw that. I didn't even know he was a Rock. I didn't realize. How could you not? Then you're not a Rockies fan
Mm-hmm.
because the Giambino brought some fun, brought some good moments.
Yeah, it's not only was he a Rocky, he was a Rocky for like a good little chunk of time, parts
Yeah,
of 4 seasons. Yeah, he didn't play a whole ton, but you knew Jason Giambi was sitting there on that bench the entire time. And real quick, I'll run through his Rockies numbers here. 4 years with Colorado, played 230 games in purple, had 104 hits in 518 plate appearances, scored 48 runs, 20 doubles, no triples, surprisingly, oddly enough, 22 long balls, drove in 86 runs, 124 strikeouts, 79 walks. He did have 2 steals, believe it or not. And then a slash line of a 248 average, 375 on base, 452 slugging, and a OPS plus of 110. So pretty much 10% better than league average during his time with the Rockies. 8 sac flies, 11 hit by pitches, and 7 intentional walks as a member of the Rockies. So solid numbers for a part-time veteran whose main job was to come off the bench and try to hit a dinger with the game on the line. And he's what do you remember when your first reaction when you saw that news that the Rockies had signed Jason Giambi in 2009?
Well, he was with the Yankees and had a lot of success, and then he went back over to the A's, and it wasn't that great of a reunion, and he struggled, got released, signs with the Rockies, goes to Colorado Springs to play, and September 1st of 2009, when the rosters expand, they bring him up, and he is that veteran guy, and I was like, this guy's he's one of those intimidating guys that'll come up off the bench, and just the history of Jason Giambi as a hitter, that left-handed, just a big dude to make some magic happen. And
Mm-hmm.
in the stats, as we're doing our research on him, in his first 3 pinch hitting appearances, he drove in runs for the Rockies. During that stretch, the Rockies won 10 out of 11 games, and that really helped that, got that surge of play in getting them into the wild card
Mm-hmm.
where they, the Phillies. But it was one of those cool things that you looking at him, it was just like, yeah, this is a guy that brings all this experience, and with one swing of the bat, he can completely change a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's cool to see in that he played 6 games in 2009 in AAA after they signed him. 6 minor league games. Ended up hitting 444, slugging 833, had 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, 8 hits in total. So made quick work of Colorado Springs. Called him up, and it's cool because of the name Jason Giambi, would see him in the video games. I was like, oh yeah, this Yankee guy. He did steroids, so there's kind of that negative connotations about him. But then to see him still come onto the team and then do really good was cool to see. And he was on the tail end of 38-year-old, so tail end of his career, but he was able to have a little bit of a resurgence there with the Rockies. And I don't know whether it was just him being in that environment or instances where we've seen veterans get signed by the Rockies and just how grateful they are to still have that chance. And they come, and it's the organization, as much as we rag on it, they're usually really good with the people, the business side of things, and the baseball playing actually, but actually dealing with people and being a good organization with the people. No, you could see those benefits with Jason Giambi, and big reason to come off the bench and help him down that stretch in 2009.
Well, that's what, reading into it, how he's at the tail end of his career. He had the success with the A's, with the Yankees, and then he matured as a person. So
Mm-hmm.
as a player, he reached those peaks, and now as a person, uh, getting at the tail end of his career, older, the maturity, and being around those kind of guys where he'd been there before, and they had their Rocktober in '07, but this is a completely different team now, and it just all settled in with Jim Tracy. He just really fit in with the team, and he brought in the fun because he's a fun guy.
Mm-hmm.
The golden thong kind of stuff, and got guys excited. The young guys, involved, and it was a good time. It was short lived, and he did have some really cool moments though.
Mm-hmm. And it was just cool to think of the Rockies during those seasons. Your two first basemen were future Hall of Famer Todd Helton, also getting up there near the end of his career, and Jason Giambi. These two legendary first basemen throughout the 2000s, early 2000s, these legendary first basemen playing together on the same team, left-handed batters. And it was cool to just the idea of Jason Giambi's backing up Todd Helton, you know, getting him those occasional starts, but really he was that extra bench coach, that extra hitting coach in that dugout to help a lot of those young, exciting players be a mentor to guys. You can think of you never heard anybody say anything bad. Troy Tulowitzki would talk about Giambi's influence. He made that good impact. He was that, like you said, that prime clubhouse guy in the
and
dugout that you could see his influence.
and held guys accountable.
Mm-hmm.
He was leading. He was leading off-season workouts with
Mm-hmm.
these guys, and showing them that you got to take care of yourself. In the interviews and stuff where he's talking about his time in Colorado, that he enjoyed it there. He was excited to be back. Dan O'Dowd that said that he they want him back because they brought him back in 2010 and then 2011 because of those leadership skills, the accountability, and holding guys accountable, and being that like the team grandpa, the team
Mm-hmm.
dad, and taking guys to Las Vegas and working out in the off season. And I think in part of that maybe you guys got to do it the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Learn from the mistakes of his generation players to be better. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and I think it all worked out because as we talked about his career, some pretty crazy things there at the end of his Rockies career that he different directions that he could have gone.
Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I always appreciate about Giambi and his career and everything is, when he got pinged for steroids and everything, thing that I always respect about him is he owned up to it. He said, "Yeah, I did that," and I think because of that, he owned up to it. Where unlike some other players in baseball history, never really owned up to those mistakes or admitting, like, "Yeah, we did the steroids and that helped." He admits it, and then that helps him move forward, and then he becomes that player we see with the Rockies that a lot of fans grew to love and really enjoy. And he had some cool moments that we can get into here in his time with the Rockies. So we took it to Twitter, and a lot of people asked him just what their favorite memories. And there's really two that popped up the most. But I think first and foremost was probably one of their favorite moments was a walk-off home run against the Boston Red Sox at Coors Field against Jonathan Papelbon, the closer. And hopefully for the video version, we have the video clip here. Hopefully this works and people can hear it on the both versions here. But thanks to the beauties of YouTube, we can pull up the clip here and over on YouTube. And here we go. Jason Giambi coming in with the game tied on the line in bottom of the ninth against Jonathan Papelbon.
Rockies Jason Giambi. You like that finish?
The mob at the home plate. Well, the video's kind of choppy. Hopefully it works out, but pretty cool moment there for Jason Giambi. I can see why people like that one so much of that moment.
Oh yeah, especially against the Red Sox. Jonathan Papelbon. Oh, what they did to us in 2007, and that was a good moment, because it's the Red Sox, and you're at Coors, and that was a shot. Those are the good ones, and it seems like in that time frame, that was always going to happen. Ryan Spilborghs with a walk-off grand slam, Seth Smith hitting pinch hit home runs like that, Cargo walking off with a blast into the third deck, that kind of stuff. Todd Helton against the Dodgers a couple years earlier, and it was like that was always a thing. And in that moment, Jason Giambi, put his stamp on Coors Field with that one.
Yeah, you look at that era and you think of walk-off bombs, Loto Magic, the late nights, and also the black vest jerseys. Jason Giambi's giant tree trunk arms, just absolutely crushing a ball. No doubters. Those were the good memories, and Jason Giambi brought a lot of those.
Oh yeah. I just, but looking at the thing, like I always thought, like, man, I thought it for me personally, I just always thought, man, I thought he hit like 10 pinch hit home runs for those 3 seasons or whatever. But we looked into it, it wasn't that much, but still, he was a very good pinch hitter for the Rockies, and he had one stretch in that was it the 2011 season. He had that stretch where Helton was hurt, and from July 5th to August 2nd, makes 10 starts at first base. A little shaky there at first, but he batted .441 and had 9 RBI. And in that season, in that 2011 season, it wasn't a whole lot of playing time, but he still hit 13 home runs. He had a 958 OPS, the 140 OPS plus, and he had our second most common, or our most popular Jason Giambi moment, where he hits 3 home runs in 3 at bats, drives in 7 runs total on May 19th against, who was it?
The Philadelphia Phillies.
The Phillies. Those turkeys. But he's one of the oldest players to do that, having 3 home runs in the game. He with that game, with those stats, he joined Reggie Jackson, Babe Ruth, and Stan the Man as the only players to go deep 3 times in one game that were older than 40. So
yeah, and I wrote about this over at purplerow.com back in 2021, September 12th, 2021, titled "That Time Jason Giambi Was a One-Man Wrecking Crew," that the late great George Frazier and Drew Goodman, they coined that phrase that night because it's kind of one of those rare starts for Jason Giambi that night, and I believe they were going up against the Phillies, going up against future former Rocky Kyle Kendrick was the starting pitcher for the Phillies that night. And so first inning, Dexter Fowler gets on base, and then there's a couple of pop outs. Troy Tulowitzki then gets a base hit. So with 2 outs for Giambi, this was kind of out of the ordinary because he was scuffling. He's hitting 200 at that point with just 1 home run. And then in a 2-2 count, launches one to right field for a 3-run homer. So boom, Rockies already off to a hot start. And then second inning comes along. Eventually they come back. In the third, Carlos Gonzalez would have a double, and Giambi would come in, runner at second, once again facing Kyle Kendrick. And on the third pitch of the at-bat, launches another one to right field, deep right field, for a 2-run shot. Rockies are leading 5-0 against the Phillies. They keep going on. They do some more stuff. Fifth inning rolls around, and Jason Giambi rolls up. Tulowitzki was on base. Giambi steps in, blasts the third pitch of that bat again, deep right field for a 2-run shot. Rockies led 7-1, and I believe that's what the score would stand for the rest of the game. So it was Jason Giambi 7, the Phillies 1, and he'd strike out in his last 2 appearances, but the 7 runs tied a career high, his first career 3 home run game, and it was just the 12th time a Rockies player had hit 3 home runs, first since Larry Walker in 2004.
And that's crazy because he hit 440 career home runs.
Mm-hmm.
And he
none
had
of them
never
had come.
done that before.
Yeah. So it was, and encourage you to find the entire clips over there on YouTube if you want to see those home runs. They are majestic blasts. Like I said, deep right field. They were absolutely crushed there against the Phillies. And I remember that night because I listened to it on the radio. I think we're driving around town. So you'll hear a lot of our memories of us listening to the Rockies on the radio. So we were driving around in town, and I think we were going around in the Kentucky Fried Chicken drive-thru. That or Arby's, one of those two. And I remember sitting there and just listening, and here's Jason Giambi, and I remember hearing the call of he hits a home run. I'm like, oh, man, that's sweet. And we still keep going along, do something, we get back in the car. And again, here's Jason Giambi. Boom, another home run. It's like, oh, man, this is pretty dang sweet. And then as we're driving home, we hear the third home run or something. But that one was ingrained in my memories of when I think of Jason Giambi, I completely forgot about the walk-off. But the 3 home runs, those are ingrained with me. Of when I think of Jason Giambi, I think of that one-man wrecking crew game where he just destroyed and dismantled the Philadelphia Phillies.
Well, that's kind of like what I was saying is when I remember Jason Giambi, I think maybe I take that game and the Papelbon walk-off and just multiply it by 70 games, and that's what he always did when that's not the case. But that's why we talk about this and do this, because these are players that are ingrained in our Rockies memories.
Well, I think, and we do that with Giambi especially because he had those moments and his reputation and just his skill set. I don't envy I couldn't imagine being a pitcher, game on the line, and you look over on the on-deck circle and there's Jason Giambi, taking his practice swings, and you're like, oh, I got to face this dude.
Dude, and he's still, ripped. He had that gray man beard going on, the like stubble beard going on. He just looked intense, like this biker that just pulled up and said, "Hey, I'm going to join this baseball game."
Exactly. That reputation, that's what he brought to the club too. No,
He's
when you
swinging
think
a chain in the dugout, ready to let's go. His buddies wearing cut-off leather jackets and leather vests in the stands. Yeah, let's get it.
Yeah. That's the reputation he brought. When you think of an ideal guy coming off the bench to be your pinch hitter, Jason Giambi's the type of guy you want. That's the kind of player you think of. That's what the Rockies wanted from Mike Moustakas. Something like that, of this veteran guy, just power to spare, and just that reputation and that potential. And man, it was fun to watch. You knew you had confidence when Jason Giambi was coming up to the plate. You're like, well, he's either gonna slap what I would always refer to as the Jason Giambi single, where he hits a laser all the way to the wall and he just gets to first base because he needed that much time because he was so slow. Or he was just going to belt one into the third deck in right field and win you the game.
Or he was going to swing strike 3, but it was, it was just that much away from being demolished.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's head was that close to getting taken off if he had made contact. And so he plays out those 4 years, diminishing returns by 2012, but still, the influence and the he's one of those clubhouse guys I've mentioned, those veterans that the Rockies like, where we'll take what we can get on the field, but he's really here because we want him in the dugout, being that coach to the guys. And finishes out that 2012 season. Rockies choose not to re-sign him. And this is one of the cool things to watch during that offseason. Jim Tracy resigns, so the Rockies are on a managerial hunt. And who decides to enter the running and is interviewing for that position? It's none other than Jason Giambi himself, which I thought was really interesting that he might have gone straight from a player to managing the team he just finished playing for.
Well, that was a crazy offseason for the Rockies. They ended up hiring Walt Weiss, who was coach in high school. And so it was kind of like it's crazy to think of how would things have gone if Giambi was put in as the manager. Who would he have brought around him in that time? Because those 3 years with Walt Weiss were some dark times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy to think about that he went from, right from playing into, hey, and they didn't they didn't hire him as the manager, but they offered him the hitting coach, and he declined because he didn't want to, that's kind of awkward.
Mm-hmm.
You get, I've been in that position before, and you don't want he's like, I don't want to be Walt Weiss thinking I'm looking over his shoulder, you know? And so they don't go that route. Giambi ends up signing with Cleveland, and, he was played for that year, for the 2013, and really didn't do much. But Terry Francona, kind of like with the Rockies, he's a veteran guy. He's, like they said, he's more than just a veteran guy. He's that player coach. He's that guy that's there. And he helped Cleveland have some success in that year.
Mm-hmm. Well, he filled that same exact role. Those Cleveland teams were young, and there were some exciting players at that time. And they bring in Giambi to be that veteran DH for them to kind of bring that influence to the club and everything. And it's interesting to think of. We have the universal DH now in the National League, and it just makes you wonder if Jason Giambi if the Rockies had the DH during that time that he was with them, what more could he have done if maybe he continues to expand that career and do more as a player and keep that career going, keep the good times rolling. Makes you wonder.
Well, yeah, and as we kind of wrap up his career too, and we talked about the steroid part and things, and something that in our research and stuff, reading about it, that especially that time that he spent with Colorado and Cleveland, in this article, he said, some of us have to walk through darkness to see the light. I did that. The human being you see today is the result of everything I went through. It turned me, hopefully, into this mentor that helped the kids in Colorado and Cleveland, and hopefully the most incredible father for my kids. I wanted to grow from my mistakes. I didn't want them to define me. And I'm truly grateful that the fans and even the writers gave me a second chance. When I got that second chance, I ran with it, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. that I had that opportunity and that learning experience.
Mhm.
So, that I think is a great part of his time with the Rockies, and seeing that person and not the wild man, I'm in it for myself type of player that maybe he was with the A's and with the Yankees.
Mhm.
And we
Yeah,
saw that maturity.
yeah, and it's cool to think, from what I can tell right now, still not working in baseball since he retired in 2015. I think the Yankees offered him a job in 2018, and he declined that and said to focus just being a dad with his kids. And last I could find, he's probably changed in the last couple of years, but spent a long time coaching his son's t-ball team, which I would not want to be the opposing team. The opposing coach, you look over in the other dugout and there's Jason Giambi coaching all these little kids, slapping dingers off the tee.
But
Yeah,
I would love to see him. I would love to see him in a managerial spot for coaching in the major leagues.
mm-hmm.
Because I was actually really excited when they were thinking about him for the Rockies spot.
Mm-hmm. And especially with how much respect the players at that time that were in the dugout with him, how much they looked up to and respected him, and the influence he had on them. Probably could have kept that ship from being as awful as it was during those lean years. And maybe some relationships don't sour, and maybe Tulowitzki doesn't get traded away in 2015, and all kinds of other things. Maybe Arenado then can stick around, or better influences there in that dugout. A lot of what ifs, but
Yeah, for sure. But he was one that and that was something we see nowadays, that there's a lot of young managers. There's a few of them that are only a year, 2 years removed from their playing time that are there now. Was it Shoemaker with the Marlins right now? Um, that it wasn't that long ago that they were there with those guys.
mm-hmm.
And so maybe the Rockies were a little ahead of the times there with that idea, but still, the Giambino gave us some great moments in Rockies history as one of those every Rocky ever
Mm-hmm.
to catch people off guard.
And he said, when he turned down the job offer from the Yankees, just kind of seeing if he was interested in anything, because he said he's interested, but just not right now. And I think one point is, when his kids are old enough to maybe move out, or on their own, because he wants to do right by his kids now as they're still young, around that 10 age, and wants to do right by them. And then maybe once they're older and ready to go, he'll seriously look into a manager position, because, like he told me, he's played for so many great managers in his career, and he feels like it would be a shame for him not to pass that knowledge on and everything. But we'll never fault a guy for putting family first and everything. And maybe some point down the line, we'll see Jason Giambi in a big league uniform again. I remember I went to the winter meetings several years ago in Las Vegas, walking around in the hotel among all the slot machines down there, mostly hunting for baseball players, looking around, and I saw Jason Giambi standing there talking to Brian Cashman, the Yankees general manager, and I came so close to getting up to him and asking to take a picture, but he had already been swarmed and taken a couple and signed some stuff for people. And then he's like, "All right, I got to go." I was like, "Man, this close, so close to having a picture with Jason Giambi." And it probably would have been one of the first times that he's had a Rockies fan come up to him, or at least a rare moment of having a Rockies fan come up to him and express that to him. But we love the Giambino and hope he's doing well. And from what we can find, sounds like he is, and happy for him. And we appreciate all the time that he spent with the Rockies. 4 seasons, a lot of good memories. Some fans even said he was the reason they became Rockies fans, which is pretty cool. And even some fans that were there to witness the couple of those moments that we mentioned. And so that'll do it here for this edition of Every Rockie Ever. As always, we appreciate you tuning in and chatting along with us. As always, let us know what players you'd like us to cover, some of your favorite memories, and hopefully we can also get some other former Rockies on here. We're still working on those, and hopefully we can get some more guys because we'd love to talk to them and shine the spotlight on them. If you're listening to us here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to leave a review. It helps out the show and the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, which is part of the Fans First Sports Network. You can find us on Twitter at Every Rockie Ever. Well, we're all caught up on former Rockies mostly. There's a lot of minor leaguers and almost Rockies, that minor leaguers, notable guys that signed but never made it to the big leagues with us. You can find me at @sideline_crowd on Twitter and Threads, whatever that's doing. And Dustin, where can the folks find you if they want to?
At Mr. T Spanish on Twitter, on TikTok, on that stuff. I'm still working at getting into the baseball media stuff, but I'm mostly as mine is a high school Spanish teacher and doing that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm the one that's trying to get it more into the baseball media world. That's my career path, hopefully. And you can also follow us at Rocky, ROCKY MTN Rooftop. That's the main account for this whole podcast network thing. Find the Affected by Altitude podcast, and every month there's the Pebble Report podcast, where Evan Lang and Kenneth Weber go over the minor leaguers from the past month and kind of the top performers and everything. So, and be sure to check out the most recent episode of Affected by Altitude that came out just this past Monday, where we talked about the draft and Elias Diaz being the MVP of the All-Star game. And answer some mailbag questions. That's what we did. So go check that out. Alrighty. Well, I guess that'll do it here, Dustin. Thank you all for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time here on Every Rockie Ever.
Don't forget those golden thongs.